horrible downpour has moved away, but it has done a bit of damage, and we're just, well, sitting and waiting. I can see some umbrellas are still up. It is still raining, and of course we are now losing time. We're losing overs now, eating into India's opportunity to score the runs that they need to win. But there is still a lot of time available. We can sit here for hours yet, chattering away and doing whatever we have to do in order for the ground staff. Well, for it to stop raining, and then for the ground staff to do what they have to do.
If you're sitting at home thinking, how many overs are lost? How is that happening at the moment? Well, essentially, you can make up an extra half hour even on the last day, but we have 98 overs scheduled for the day. So, the moment the clock ticked round to 11:30, we started to lose overs. An early lunch was taken between 12:30 and 1:10. So, right now, we have lost 1 hour and 7 minutes, which would be the princely sum of around about 17 overs. And we'll lose an over every 4 minutes of rain, or 4 minutes of not being able to get out there. So that's sort of how you can set your clock by it if you like. What we don't know is, if it does clear up, just how keen England and India will be to get out there. Well, they think that even if, Indians might think, well, even if we've got 15 overs, we could have a thrash for 5 of them. Even if we lost 3 or 4 wickets, we're never going to lose the game. Would they be that keen? Time will tell, I'm afraid. So I would say the basic rule of thumb will be, if we can't get out there by around about 5 o'clock, then the game will be abandoned. But if we get a huge deluge, it's a very good training ground here at Trent Bridge. Apparently, Mark Ramprakash, I think, was it you who told me it's about as good, or it might have been tough as it's up there with Lords. It's one of the better draining grounds in England, Trent Bridge, I believe.
I think it was Tuffers who said that.
Well, Middlesex legends always merge into one with me.
I didn't think you, as a Surrey man, thought there were any Middlesex legends, actually.
Well, they're legends in Middlesex, aren't they? But Mark's a little different.
I thought he was a Surrey legend.
Well, he is a Surrey legend, but yeah. But just then, I go, look, don't throw me. So, look, that's what the sort of general rule of thumb is. But as Jonathan Agnew did tell you a moment ago, it's raining, and as Mark Church would say, it's wet rain, it's heavy rain, and puddles are forming. So the ground staff can't even get on. It'll take them at least an hour to tidy up. So the scene is somewhat ill, because the umpires have been out. It's a very hopeful sign, because we've got this window. It's not a beautiful window. It's a grey and murky scene still, but there's no rain falling, which is merciful. And given that it has been pretty much relentlessly falling since about 9 o'clock this morning, we should be grateful for that. However, the umpires have now walked off again. So I think they may have been told by the ground staff, who were not mopping anything up, incidentally. Normally you would get an indicator from that, and I don't see a large number of ground staff. There are a couple in shorts, always in shorts, regardless of whether it's April, frankly, or indeed December. I imagine they're always in shorts here. But there's a little bit of a cheer, which suggests maybe, the Super Sopper has come out. Has a piece of machinery ever received such approval? Whoops of delirious excitement. So the Super Sopper is coming out to, I think, potentially attend to some of the puddles that have emerged from the side.
I mean, in the old days, if you saw puddles like that, you'd be packing your bags.
It's over, wasn't it, then?
But they can disappear quite quickly, can't they?
They can. So I think ground staff may start to do something. We've got a little bit of a concern that away to our right there is a bank of fairly horrible grey murky stuff. But look, all we can do is wait and see. But at the moment, the Super Sopper is actually superly sopping.
It's stopping superbly.
It is stopping superbly. It's gone straight for it. It's made a beeline for a puddle. It's gone straight after it, and it's sopped some of it up. I bring you news that's relatively positive. We haven't had any rain fall for quite a while, and we have had some covers removed. That's because we haven't had any rain falling, which is marvellous. And a huge, great puddle has therefore been formed. I'm sure the ground staff know exactly what they're doing, because they do it around the country. But there's this rather curious thing where you get a cover and you seem to turn it upside down and deposit all the water from the cover onto the outfield. But it had previously been there to cover the wickets. So now the Super Sopper is going to run up and down this newly created mini lake stroke pond away to our right. And the ground staff are just going to have to keep going. 2:30, there's going to be another umpire's inspection. But it's more promising. There are still clouds, it is still grey, it's pretty grim, but it's not raining.
It'd be interesting, wouldn't it, to be, well, I was going to say a fly on the wall in the dressing rooms about what each dressing room wants to happen
We'll be
in
able to-
reality,
we'll be able
not
to
what they
tell.
say.
When they walk down and have a look, when Joe Root starts sort of pushing his foot into a bit of the ground,
Yes.
oh, I'm not quite sure about that, then I think we might have an idea. Or when Virat Kohli's running back and forth, looking very assured.
I've got an idea that Rishabh Pant might hope it's a 20-over chase.
Yes. There's been a lot of movement, by the way, since I last updated you, because we're due a pitch inspection in 4 minutes, and I fear that may be postponed because there's been some movement with the covers, both off initially, and then back on. And I don't see that it is currently raining, but there is a big splodge of grey. But we have been watching the weather come directly from our right for the entire game. And the darkness is currently straight ahead of us, so we might be lucky that it's going to move away. But the ground staff are taking precautions in case that lands on us. If it doesn't, then away to my right it's not beautiful or anything, but it's relatively high, relatively light grey, and I can indeed see some hills, which is very positive. It's not like being at Old Trafford where those hills are well, they're not there.
There's bad news from here. You can't see the Pennines.
That's right.
Oh, you can't see them anyway.
Can't see them anyway. I can bring you just a little bit of news now, which is that they put all the covers back out and then it didn't rain, and so they've actually started to look as if they might be able to do a little bit more with the covers. But in that intervening period, another large bank of grey cloud has arrived. It's not yet raining, but it might do. It's all very frustrating.
We've had no play so far today, as I'm sure you are aware. The latest weather situation is that, well, we've had another band of rain, and away to the right-hand side, there looks to be more rain coming. I think it's easing off at the moment, but as the clock ticks, it's going to be harder and harder to see the possibility of any play today. It's one of those situations where we could have a bit of play, but of course we need a reasonable amount to have an outright result in the game. Anyway, the umpires inspected a couple of times, but basically when they come out, it starts raining again and they have to go off. There are big puddles on the ground at the moment. I mean, they can mop those up. At one point they took the covers off, but then it started raining again, and there looks to be more rain on its way. So it's a pretty grim picture at the moment at Trent Bridge. There are spectators here. They're huddled under as much cover as they can possibly find at the back of the stands, but it's very frustrating for everyone. A really interesting final day set up here with India probably favourites to win the match. Joe Root saying last night that he thought there were 9 wickets out there for England today. Well, it doesn't look at the moment as if we're going to find out whether that's the case or not, but things can change and we can go through until around about 7 o'clock tonight. So I'm sure the umpire's just hanging on and just waiting to see what's going to happen, how the weather's going to develop over the next, I don't know, half an hour, something like that. But it may well be after that time that they take a definitive decision. I've got Andy Zaltzman alongside me, and I've got Deep Das Gupta. He's not with us, a bit like Prakash. Well, not quite like Prakash, because at least Deep's in the country and will join us at Lord's, but he's had to quarantine for this test match, but he will be with us for the next game. I'm going to assume, Deep, that there is no play today, and I'm going to ask you, will this feel like a missed opportunity for India?
Most definitely yes, because if you're looking at the equation, 157, 9 wickets in hand, it was never going to be easy, but at least you knew you had a fairly good chance of winning the first test of a series, that too in England, because India hasn't really started series well of late. So this definitely will go down as a very frustrating day for India.
And how will that affect the players, do you think? I mean, are they good enough just to put it behind them?
I'm sure they would. They would have to, because they can't really dwell over it. You're playing a test match in 3 days' time again. But obviously this is going to give them some confidence in terms of, because like I said, India really haven't started series that well away from home. So this should give them that kind of confidence, especially the bowling unit. People like KL Rahul, who opened after a very long time and played really well. Someone like Ravindra Jadeja. There's a lot of positives to be taken away from this test match. But again, back of your mind, you had a you had a really good chance of starting the series with a win.
Yeah, I mean, how impressed have you been with India in this Test match? Do you expect them to start strongly? I think you said the other day that you thought India would go well in this series, and you made them favourites to win it.
Yeah, impressed. Yes, I was a tad bit disappointed with the batting effort in the first innings. Thought, a few more runs in the first innings, and could have been a different story. Could have been easier comparatively, I'd reckon. But overall, yes, very impressed with the overall performance, especially on day one, the way the Indian bowlers bowled. They were phenomenal. KL Rahul. So like I said, there are quite a few positives to be taken out of this first game.
Now, what about Lords? It was a quick turnaround, just a 3-day gap between this Test match and the next one. What do India do in terms of their team lineup? They have got a battery of pace bowlers here. Do they rotate, or do they say, right, well, actually, for them, there's a 4-day gap, isn't there, because they haven't bowled on the final day. What do they do? Are they happy enough with the team, or do they look at changes and a bit of rotation?
I'd be very surprised if they make any changes for the second Test match. As far as fast bowling is also concerned, they've bowled total of 170 overs, maybe even less than that in the last 4 days.
65 overs in the first innings, 85 in the second. Yeah, that's the workload over the Test match. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been 150. So that's been all right. And the fact that there was this 1 month break before this Test match, so they've had enough time to relax and chill and and rest. So I don't think there would be any changes. There shouldn't be any changes for the second Test match. Maybe after the second, they might think again. After the second, there is a fairly long gap again, more than a week. So yeah, I guess it's well planned that way. So I would be really surprised to see changes in that playing 11, unless the conditions demand maybe 2 spinners and 3 seam bowlers rather than 4 and 1.
Yeah, well, we are hearing rumours, but they are rumours just at the moment, that actually it's just possible, the sun might shine during the Lord's Test match, and we might be in for a week of good weather. So does that mean that Ravichandran Ashwin comes into the picture, or is it just been, this is speculation, of course, a bit too wet even in London in the lead up to the Test match for them to produce a dryish pitch?
Because a lot of people been asking this question and talking about how there's a competition between Jadeja and Ravichandran Ashwin. But personally, I think it's not between Jadeja and Ashwin. It's more between Shardul and Ashwin. That's more of a tactical decision that the Indian management needs to make, whether you want to go with two spinners or one. Because I think Jadeja batting at number 6 is more, as far as competition is concerned, I think it's more to do between him and Hanuma Vihari. Who do you want to play at number 6? But I think end of the day, it's going to be whether you want to play 4 seamers or 3.
Yeah, so it's a question of whether they go with the 2 if it is a bit drier at Lords. The ball has spun a bit at Lords. In fact, we saw a game early in this year, the New Zealand Test match, where that actually neither side really played a top flight spinner, but the ball did turn, so we didn't really get to see a top class spinner bowl on the Lords surface. As far as options are concerned for India, they've got Ishant Sharma and they've got Umesh in terms of their, if they want to change their pace bowling attack, and Deep saying he doesn't think they will. But what about Ishant's record in England? He's actually played quite a lot of Test cricket in England.
He's played 13 Tests here previously, the World Test Championship final in June, and 12 Tests against England spread across 3 series. In 2011, a very difficult tour for India after they'd won their World Cup at home. A rather exhausted team was thrashed 4-0, 11 wickets at 58. But in his 2 tours since then, he's been very effective. 14 wickets, averaged 27 in the 2014 series. Notably at Lords, took 7 for 74 in the second innings, bowled India to victory with a short pitch barrage, though we've seen him much more as a bowler who pitches it up in recent years. And on the 2018 tour, played all 5 Tests, took 18 wickets, averaged 24. So with Ishant's stats over the course of his career, he's had phases like most bowlers do. We've seen with Anderson and Broad have various phases in their careers, and he started quite well. His first few years in Test cricket averaged 32. Then in the middle part of the last decade, really struggled, playing on a lot of difficult pitches at home, but averaged 40 between the 2011 Tour of England and the end of 2017. But since 2018, he's played 23 tests, taken 80 wickets at an average fractionally under 20. So he's never been better as a bowler, and you would expect if he's fit at some point in this series he could have a major impact. Umesh Yadav as well has only played one test in this country before, picked up 3 wickets in the Edgbaston game on the last tour, but he too has had his most productive time as a test cricketer in recent years. Started off picked up quite a few wickets but averaged close to 40, but again over the last sort of couple of years, in fact his last 12 tests since the start of 2018, hasn't played that much, but 49 wickets, averaged fractionally under 20. So both of them have had their most productive time recently, and as we mentioned before, the depth of Indian pace bowling has never been stronger.
Yeah, and Ishant Sharma's taken over 300 test wickets. I mean, it was quite a luxury in a sense to leave him out, although our understanding is, or your understanding, Deep, is that he just had a bit of a niggle, and so that possibly ruled him out of the game.
Yes, I think so. That's what I've heard as well, a bit of that niggle. Also importantly, when you're looking at seamers, it's important, for me at least, is that the fight is not between Shardul and Ishant. Because Shardul is there because of the package, because of his batting skills as well. So if India is going in with 4 seamers, you would want Shardul as your 4th seamer because of his batting abilities and someone who could bat at number 8. So it would be one of the other 3 seamers that Ishant would replace if he's playing. So it'll be between him and Mohammad Siraj predominantly, or you want to rest someone like a Bumrah or a Mohammad Shami.
Yeah, I think England would be perfectly happy for India to rest Bumrah after this test match. He's been fantastic. I mean, he's taken 9 wickets, his second best test figures, match figures, 9 for in this game, and the second best by an Indian in England.
In England, yes. And I was looking at Bumrah's statistics away from home. He's played the vast majority of his test cricket, all apart from 2 tests of his career, away from India. 19 tests in which he's taken 88 wickets at an average of 21.6. Looked at all bowlers since the Second World War who've taken 75 wickets away from their home country, and Bumrah's average is bettered only by Joel Garner, Alan Davison, a great Australian left arm of the late 50s and early 60s, Curtly Ambrose, Glenn McGrath and Malcolm Marshall. So he's in elite company, just ahead of Richard Hadley. So his performance away from it's been a constant theme in Indian cricket, attempting to perform and win overseas, and he's played a part in their 2 wins in Australia recently. And you think if he'd been fit for the whole of the 2018 tour, missed the first test with an injury, that could have been a different series.
Well, he's bowled magnificently in this test match. I think England would be perfectly happy not to face him if he is rested sometime in this series. Just on the batting, Deep, of course, they played effectively their 3rd choice opener in this match because of the injury initially to Shubman Gill, and then Mayank Agarwal was hit on the head by Siraj in the nets, and KL Rahul has come in and has had a good test match, 84 and 26, 110 runs in the game. Does that mean he automatically keeps his place, or would they go back to Agarwal because it seems as if he was sort of second in the pecking order?
Well, I'm not too sure whether he was an option as an opener at all, because what I've been hearing that he was being looked at more as a middle order batter. So from that perspective, I think he's done extremely well, because it's so difficult to mentally kind of get yourself ready to open, and that too in these tough conditions here in England. And it's not just the runs that he's got in the first innings and also a few in the second, is the way he's batted. He's looked so comfortable, he's looked at ease. I haven't really seen him play as well as this in red ball cricket in a while. So I would like to believe that he retains his place as an opener.
Well, he has played really well in this match. So KL Rahul, I accept he was going to play. He was seen as a middle order player, but he was sort of shunted up because of the injury to Gill and to Agarwal as well. I mean, it's a very big India squad. I think they've got 21 players. So you think basically roughly, or possibly even exactly the same side?
I think so. I mean, I would be a little surprised, as I mentioned, that it's still raining in London, and chances are it won't be a dry pitch at Lord's. So yeah, I think they might just go with the same playing 11.
Well, Deep, it's going to be great to have you actually with us, so we can actually sort of have face-to-face conversations.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you with us for the Lord's Test match. The situation here, you mentioned the rain in London. We'll come to that in just a moment. The situation here is that I think the rain has eased off a bit, and it's a bit brighter away to the right-hand side. But clearly, there's going to be no play for a while here. There are puddles around the covers. The covers are still on, but the sort of latest band of rain looks to have gone. It may be that we're in for a dry period, so it's up to the ground staff and see what they can come up with and sort of time we can possibly start. Anyway, we'll wait and see on that. So this may be our sort of last chance. More rain, that could be it. But it may be we're lucky for a while. I'm told there might well be a gap. So fingers crossed. There might still be some hope here for some play.
We're waiting. The umpires gave a cursory inspection a few moments ago. We've had no play at all. A lot of rain, and we've got puddles and lakes and so on the outfield. The umpires did come out in some driving rain with their umbrellas up a few moments ago. That's often a signal for seasoned cricket watchers that they might call it off, but there's still a lot of time available yet. I mean, where are we? It's 10 to 4, still 3.5 hours available to play. There's a lot of work to be done to get everything fit and ready. So I don't think it's actually raining. It's just raining a little bit at the moment. Anyway, we're waiting for news down there, and we might get that in the next 10 minutes or so that Michael Vaughan and I are going to chat, because although there's been no play today, there's been a lot going on in this match, and certainly considerations to be given to what might happen at Lord's, which starts on Thursday. So Michael Vaughan's with me. I think we'll assume for now, at least, Michael, that this is being washed out as a draw. Bonuses, what do you think? What's come out of this game significantly for England?
Joe Root, I think you interviewed him pre-match and were slightly concerned by his demeanour with everything that's gone around the Test team, from trying to deal with this pandemic. No doubt the kind of meetings that he's been involved with regarding the Australian trip, the families, will they be allowed in, won't they be allowed in? The news of Ben Stokes, the news in the game about Jofra Archer, trying to get this team playing to some kind of fashion to go and compete in this series, and then obviously down in Australia on the back of the New Zealand series loss, on the back of the Indian series loss. So many kind of question marks over the side. The way that he's come out and batted, the way that he played against New Zealand against the Seamers was a concern, because he had that big trigger movement. He just didn't look right. And then as soon as he came out to bat in the first innings here at Trent Bridge, I just saw simplicity. I saw a simple movement, nice and still, nice and side on, and that straight bat that we see so often with Joe Root, coming down towards the line of the ball. His foot movement was excellent, then being busy, rotating the strike. It was great to see the captain in that kind of rhythm, that kind of form.
It's going to break in a moment. So the match has been abandoned. That was the announcement you heard there in the background. There'll be some boos, of course. It has rained all day, on and off, but mainly on. And again, at times you're sort of, the umpires looks quite bright over in the west at the moment, but I think they've considered there's so much damage done to the ground and the water line, and so that the match has been abandoned. So it is a draw. Given this game has been drawn, Michael, I mean, we talk about Joe Root and how well he played, and of course he did, but his contribution compared to the other end, that remains a problem, doesn't it?
No, it's an issue. I mean, the batting's just not been good enough. I'll be honest with you, I think England will be delighted to get out of this Test match with a draw. I'm sure they'll come out and talk positively about the fact that they could have won the game. I had India as clear favourites to go on and get those runs. On this wicket now, I think they'd have got them. So England have kind of dodged a bullet this week because of the standard that they've played as a team. As an individual, Joe Root has been magnificent. Ollie Robinson with the ball in hand again in his second Test match has been tremendous. He just looks a Test match bowler. So England certainly found one in Ollie Robinson. But the batting is a clear problem. And it's now time to the management over the next day or so to try and work out what is the right decision for the team going forward. I think they need change. I think Ollie Pope will come back in. I think he'll come back in at the expense of Dan Lawrence. I like Bairstow at 5 with no Ben Stokes. I think you need that bit of experience at 5. So I think it'll be Dan Lawrence to miss out in the middle. At the top of the order, it's just been an issue now for too long where the top 3 have just not fired. Decisions to be made. I think Crawley, his stock was very high last summer. Since then he's averaged 10 in Test match cricket, and I think a little bit of time away from this environment. The problem with this schedule is that Zach hasn't got a 4-day game to go and play in. He's got 100, so he'll go back and play for the London Spirit, and then he'll play for Kent. But I think the best thing for him as a young player is to get out of this firing line and just go and play cricket, enjoy playing cricket, get a load of runs for Kent, and I'm sure he'll be on that plane to Australia. Dom Sibley, I'm sure the England management will give him another try at Lords. I personally now have seen enough in Dom Sibley to suggest that I don't see an improvement. I don't see a ceiling that can get any higher. I think we've seen what Dom Sibley can do. I personally would have Hamid at the top of the order with Rory Burns, and I bring in David Malan to bat number 3. Again, a little bit of experience, a bit of substance. He averages 42 last time in Australia. I'm not too sure whether he is on the radar of the England Test management, but it's just my opinion. I think it just looks a more experienced, solid top 7 if you go with Burns, Hamid, Malan, Root, Bairstow, Pope and Joss Butler at number 7.
But yet Pope hasn't played any cricket.
Well, that's the
he's
issue.
He's had an injured thigh and he's coming back, but he hasn't held a bat.
No, that's the problem with the schedule. I mean, Joss Butler's not played any cricket either, and you're expecting him to find form. I think Butler looked better in the second innings. I think as the series goes on, I think Butler will get better and better. We've seen that with him in Test cricket before. The more he plays, the better he gets. He just gets into the rhythm and the sync of batting in Test match cricket. Bairstow looked excellent in both innings. So you'd hope that Johnny Bairstow at number 5 can be consistent for the side. It's just that top order, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people out there saying, "Oh, you're so harsh getting rid of Dom Sibley. He did a job for England yesterday." And I say, did he? Without an incredible innings by Joe Root. We've got to be honest, yesterday the pitch was flat and England only just managed to scrape over 300 because of the exceptional play of the captain. And if you look at 2021, the 2 games in Sri Lanka, all down to Joe Root. That Test victory in India, all down to Joe Root. They can't become a side that they can only compete or get away with the draw this week because of the captain. That's just not a possible solution to winning big series. You need more of a substance to all your batting lineup, and I've just seen enough of Dom Sibley now to suggest, has he got any better? To score 28 of 135 balls yesterday on a flat wicket with no real counterpunch. That's my concern, is that when he gets in, I'm not saying he's going to play like Kevin Peterson or he's going to be flamboyant. That's not his style, but you have to have a counterpunch. You have to have something that the bowler's running up to bowl thinking, oh, he could hit me and hurt me in those areas. I just don't see how he's going to hurt bowlers.
Or just a busy attitude to generate singles. That's part of the problem, isn't it? I mean, he's very restricted in where he plays, so he blocked those off. He hardly hits anything through the offside at all, so you just have a nice set leg side and just bowl at him. And
that's the issue, Agus, because his single options are only on the leg side, so you're reliant on the ball being on around middle and off stump. And if the bowlers say, OK, we'll just challenge you outside the off stump, 4th and 5th stump, bring you forward, he doesn't have too many answers hitting through the offside.
He's patient. He's got
that's a skill.
That mentality of getting out there and batting a long time.
Yeah, you just want him to go up in a gear. I'm not saying go up to the gears of 5th and 6th, but can he get to gears 2 and 3 in Test match cricket? Look, he'll get another chance. I don't think England will remove him. I think he plays at Lords because I know this management, and they're very consistent, they're very loyal. They very rarely like to manoeuvre players out of the side, so I'm sure he'll play. But look, he needs a big score. You don't earn your crust at the top of the international game by getting 18s and 20s. You have to get big scores and you have to get the hundreds.
Bearing in mind this attack is excellent, the seam attack. Australia, another notch up. That's the challenge that the opening batsmen face, that England take with them.
Yeah, and it's a good challenge, and also it's a good whereabouts of where the players are at when you think about what they're facing in this series and what's going to come in the winter. Those players that play well in this series, you would say that they'll be in the right state of mind and confidence to go and be successful in Australia. And those that struggle in this series, you don't want to be playing catch up. In Test cricket, you want to be ahead of. I always think when you're going into a big series, you always want to be playing with a little bit stored in the bank. You want a bit of credit in the bank. You don't want to be really chasing those huge scores that you had to get when you go up against the real quality. So Lords will be a big week once again for the batting unit. I think they will make a change. I think they'll make 2 actually. I think they'll think Pope will come in for Lawrence, and I think Hamid will come in for Zach Crawley. I think Dom Sibley will definitely get one more go, but I personally would make that change as well.
What about the bowling then? Because it's going to spin at Lords. As you know, they haven't really had the opportunity to pick a spinner. It's really easy, difficult to do that without Ben Stokes in the side. But how do they get a spinner into this side? Presumably, the first option would be Leach, without restricting their seamers to 3 and also weakening the batting. I mean, I'm assuming probably Sam Curran would be the one that would miss out.
Yeah, you would feel that, for England to get a spinner in, they'll have to go in with just 4 bowlers. And the 3 seamers of Broad, Anderson and Ollie Robinson, the 3 that you can pretty much guarantee can bowl in all conditions. I would think that they'll go with those 3, and it'll be Jack Leach that'll come into the equation. They may go with 4 seamers again. They did that against New Zealand.
We have got Root.
Yeah, can't imagine that India are going to have 2. I know you got 5 for 8 against them, and that was on a beach. That's not something that you can kind of go back on and think you'll do that again. I personally think England have got to get Jack Leach into the side. I don't like the balance of not having a spinner. If you're going to win big series against real quality teams, and I also think that they're going to need Jack Leach in Australia. Left-arm spinners had success in Australia over the last few. Maharaj for South Africa did a great job. I just don't see them competing without having at least Jack Leach bowling a bit of spin for them.
What about the Indians? How will they reflect on this match? I mean, they'll feel they should have won it, of course.
Yeah, I think they'll be happy with KL Rahul. I thought he played beautifully in both innings. They'll be happy with that opening stance in the first innings with Rohit Sharma getting a few runs. They'll be concerned about 3, 4 and 5. Pujara just doesn't look in any kind of form. Virat out first ball. He'll come good eventually. Rahane is an issue because he's just not scored any runs of late, and he just looks quite flimsy and fragile. He got that tremendous 100 in Melbourne and captained the side so well. Since then, he really hasn't got a run, and he's really struggled. And it's how they get Ashwin into the side, because I think Ashwin will play at Lord's. Clearly, Jadeja plays, so they'll go with 2 spinners. And looking at that team, you would think that probably someone like Thakur will miss out for Ashwin, and they'll probably replace one of the seamers with Ishant Sharma, who's bowled so well at Lord's in the past. I mean, they've got so many options, and they've got so much quality on their bench that whichever 11 that India decide to play at Lord's, it's going to be a challenging one for England to beat.
Well, I hope they don't replace Siraj. I enjoyed watching him.
He's a bit like Murph Hughes, isn't he, Siraj? He gets into the batters' faces.
He does. He's got a lot to say, very, very hostile, whips himself up and gets himself going. Michael Vaughan, thank you very much indeed. We'll catch you, of course, at Lord's. That Test match starting on Thursday.